Is King the Lunarian a distant relative of the Skypieans? Does Sanji have Lunarian blood? And most important of all, if Santa's little helper ate Milhouse's goldfish, and then Bart lied about Milhouse not having any goldfish...
But why'd I have the ball, Bart? Why did I have the ball?
Powerful Nerdcast assemble! Stay dandy, baby. Greetings, my fellow Nakama. It's time for a One Piece discussion video. But before we dive into today's topic, I would like to ask all of you who are not subscribed to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. My fellow subscribers, make sure to hit that bell notification icon. It's going to let you know when all my latest videos are released. And of course, if you are liking my video, take out a cannon, light it on fire, and shoot one of those big bastards right into that like button. It helps out these videos tremendously. And I'd also suggest checking out my Patreon page. You can make a small donation, which will go a long way in helping out the channel financially, as well as making me a super happy boy. Not to mention, I'd love to add your name to this list of amazing people that you currently see on screens, the big super producers of Ace Guru. But today, we're gonna talk about King, the Lunarians, Sanji's true lineage, and how it all might possibly connect to Skypiea. First things first, I'm gonna mispronounce things. I'm probably gonna get my facts wrong. I'm a human, just work with me. And a lot of my theories might not even be all that original. You might have already heard this stuff before, but this is my video, damn it, and it's going to be classy. So first, let's talk about King. He's the new kid on the block ever since he was introduced in the Wano arc. Everybody's been wondering what his deal is. Outside of the fact that he's a gimped out Pteranodon man, one of the biggest reveals about his character is that he belongs to a mysterious race which is known as the Lunarians. This little nugget of information was delivered by Queen, who mentioned that the Lunarians themselves have the ability to essentially conjure fire, or at least manipulate it in some way. Think of it this way: the minks use electricity, the fishmen use water, Lunarians use fire. Now, the concept of a character in the One Piece world utilizing fire is not new. We've already seen a lot of characters who utilize it in a number of different fashions, whether it be Ace using his devil fruit, or even Sanji, who inexplicably lights his legs on fire for seemingly no reason, outside of the fact that he's just super fast and kind of a badass. But King, being a Lunarian, is kind of a big deal, and it raises a number of questions. When I saw King for the very first time and I learned what his devil fruit power was, which was a Zoan-type devil fruit which allowed him to transform into a dinosaur, I just figured the fact that the reason this guy has wings is because of that devil fruit. Except for the fact that his wings are giant and feathery, not like a Pteranodon. And this raises another question. Do the Lunarians themselves actually naturally have feathery wings which allow them to fly, this combined with their fiery abilities? It's an interesting question, and it also reminds us that this isn't the first time that we've also seen characters with feathery wings. Case in point, the Skypiea arc. While the Skypiea arc happened a very long time ago, it's an arc which still manages to have a massive effect on the series, as it's where Haki was sort of subtly introduced for the very first time under a different name, with Enel using his mantra. It also sort of opened the floodgates on the mysteriousness of the One Piece world, showing that anything is possible, and there's a lot of things in the history and lore of One Piece that is still utterly mysterious. And while King does indeed have wings, they're very different from the typical ones that we see from the Skypieans. The Skypieans have very tiny, white little wings, which really aren't all that elaborate or insane. King's, on the other hand, are absolutely massive, completely different than anything else that we saw from the Skypieans. However, I do firmly believe there is some sort of connection between these two groups. There's just no way that there's this other race of people in the One Piece world which just so happen to have this rare ability, these massive, expansive bird-like wings. Thanks to my ability to scour the One Piece Wikipedia page, I actually learned that the Lunarians themselves, years ago they were seen as a godlike race, which was eventually wiped out, leaving King as the sole survivor. But I don't actually think that this is the case. I have a feeling that there are other Lunarians out there, and they might even have a connection to the Skypieans and where they came from. And a lot of that is actually owed to this one small story that they told in the stories of the One Piece manga, which is actually all about Enel going to the moon. Why they didn't decide to turn this into some sort of ridiculous fun filler arc remains to be seen, but still, it's an interesting story which opens up another question about the Lunarians themselves and where they could potentially come from. So in this short story, essentially Enel ends up going to the moon, fighting space pirates, and meeting these weird little robot people and discovering these hieroglyphics, which actually show off the various types of Skypieans. The Shandians, the Burkas, and of course, the Skypieans themselves. But there is the potential that this is also where the Lunarians came from, and it makes perfect sense because, you know, it's the friggin' moon! Moon, lunar, Lunarians, do the math. So from this, we can make an educated guess that at one point, the people of the moon came to the One Piece world, and these different tribes went to different places, with King's group, the Lunarians, having a home on the Red Line. I've seen a number of theories about the various different versions of the Skypieans and the Lunarians, and the fact that maybe the Lunarians themselves were sort of like a representation or like a demonic version of the Skypieans, where they were seen as the more angelic holy group, and then the Lunarians were all evil and everything. I mean, they can conjure fire after all. You think of fire, you think of hell, you think of demonic shit. And one look at King, well, he's a pretty freaky looking motherfucker. But why were the Lunarians wiped out? Why were they removed from the Red Line? I mean, the obvious answer is that the world government didn't want them interfering in their plans, which are of course kind of shady and still ultimately mysterious. But I have another theory here, and it actually ties directly to Sanji's family, Germa 66. So Germa 66, outside of essentially being just a riff on Super Sentai and Power Rangers, is a massive army which has conquered large portions of the ocean, and they at one point were actually teamed up with the world government, and they've been around for a very long time. The Vinsmokes have had a large reputation for being conquerors, and I have a feeling that they might have actually have been the key force that took down the Lunarians. They were the ones that actually removed them from the Red Line entirely. And then that brings us to the present storyline, which I think directly connects to Sanji, his father, and his mother. So, Sanji's father, Judge. One thing we can know about his character is that he's big, he's super pissed off, and he's got some pretty slick style. But most of all, he is a hardcore individual who had some real issues with his son. The biggest being that he was not genetically modified like the rest of his brothers and sisters. When we go back into the backstory of Sanji, we get to learn that his mother, Sora, which by the way means to fly or go up into the sky, by the way, just pay attention with me here, she took a drug which was supposed to suppress all of the genetic modification of her children, but it only had an effect on Sanji. And this was one of the reasons why I believe, of course, Judge had a real big problem with him, and also why he might have had a problem with his wife in the first place. I do firmly believe, it's not 100% confirmed here or anything, that possibly Sanji's mother might have been a Lunarian. And when Judge found this out, it was something that he ultimately wanted to suppress. He knew that if he was going to have children with this woman, there's a possibility that they would inherit Lunarian traits. And being that his family potentially could have been the ones that actually took out the Lunarians, this probably wouldn't look all that great with the world government. Now keep in mind, everything I'm talking about takes place way before Whole Cake Island and everything, and before Germa 66 was essentially just, you know, screwed over by the world government and they're not even recognized anymore. Just follow me here. And this could be him looking down on his son, realizing that he actually has inherited the traits of the Lunarians themselves. And this brings us to Sanji. Throughout the course of the series, as his abilities have progressed and evolved, he's eventually started to allow his legs to essentially just light ablaze, become fire themselves, and he's able to utilize this with his attacks, and these could very well be his inherent Lunarian abilities. Now again, we don't know the full extent of how Lunarian fire abilities actually work right here, and the manga actually goes a great way in showing us that Sanji might not even be potentially Lunarian at all. Queen manages to say that himself, but there's something else going on here in this manga, and avid readers will probably notice it, that when Sanji was putting on his Germa 66 outfit, he realizes that it's starting to make him feel a little weird, as if there's some sort of weird technology within the suit which is starting to unlock his Lunarian abilities, or maybe even might be suppressing them in some sort of weird way. Now look, I'm not saying that Sanji is going to end up like sprouting black wings or anything. I just have a feeling that there's something about him which has to be explained. I mean, there's a lot of weird shit in the One Piece world. There's no getting around that. It's got the weirdest cast of characters that I have ever seen. But in a world filled with devil fruit powers, creative races of people, and straight up hockey itself, there has to be some sort of explanation behind Sanji's abilities, and they could be tied directly to the Lunarians themselves. Now, what I think is most interesting about this is, with this sort of prospect, you would think that Sanji would be doing battle with King. It would be the perfect opportunity for him to not only learn a little bit more about his supposed secret powers, but in a way to sort of manifest those Lunarian abilities. But again, I think they're trying to mess with us just a little bit here. But as they slowly start to reveal more about King, including a very small look at his face, which we saw in the latest chapter 1027, we get to see his face for the first time, and it's got slick back hair and slightly dark skin. And that slick back hair just immediately makes me think of Sanji and his brothers and sister. I don't know, I think there's potential for something there, but there is some sort of crazy connection between all of these various events, and if this was all planned by Oda since the beginning, then that man has my freaking respect for coming up with something like this. The introduction of King was not only awesome, but it was just an amazing cog, which is being placed in the machine that is the lore of the One Piece world. So again, for this discussion, I would like to pose a question to you, the viewers, which we could talk about in the comments section below. Are the Lunarians related to the Skypieans, and has Sanji inherited, or is he quite literally a Lunarian himself? Let's talk about it in the comments section below. Thoughts, theories, hopes, and dreams for the future of the series. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby.